Hi guys, it's you and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be starting a new series called True Crime Tuesdays because honestly true crime is something that I've always been very interested in, and I watch a lot of true crime all the time. So I was like, true crime all the time. So I was like, I need to start something like this for my channel, and that's what we're doing. Before we get into today's video, I just want to say that in this series I'm going to be talking about a lot of things, a lot of graphic things, and just things related to murder and assault and rape and just things related to crime in general. So if you are someone who is triggered by those things, then I suggest you go and watch some of my other videos on my channel, which are definitely a little bit lighthearted and fun. And yeah, anyway, I think we should just get into the video. So today we're going to be discussing the case of Deborah Ann Wolfe. Now, Deborah Ann Wolfe was a 28-year-old girl who used to live in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and she used to live in a cabin which was a little on the outskirts. It was about 5 to 6 miles from the city. She used to live with her two dogs, Morgan and Mason. Deborah, who was also known as Debbie, was the kind of girl who was really nice to people. She loved doing things for people. She was someone who was loved by everybody around her. All she wanted to do in her life was do something good for the people and give back to the people, which is why she decided to become a nurse. So she used to work as a nurse at the Fayetteville Veterans Administration Hospital, and I think she worked there for about 2 years before her death. It was around Christmas time, and Deborah had just spent an amazing Christmas with her family like she usually did. Everything was going perfect and everything was going well. The next day, on 26 December of 1985, she went to work for a regular 8 a.m. shift, and she got off work at around 4 p.m. and that was the last time that anybody ever saw her alive. No one knew that anything was wrong till obviously she didn't show up the next day for work. So at 8 a.m. when she didn't show up for work, people started getting worried, and the reason they started getting worried was because Deborah wasn't the kind of person who would just miss work. Also, Deborah was very punctual, so even if she was going to be like 5 minutes late, she would call in beforehand and tell them. So her not showing up for work was so bizarre that people thought that something was wrong. So they ended up calling her mother, Jenny Edwards, and her mom also didn't know where she was. Because Deborah wasn't the kind of person who would just disappear without telling anybody, so she knew something was wrong. So she called Deborah's house phone and no one picked up, and so she started getting worried. Obviously she was like, where's my daughter? So she went to Deborah's house along with a family friend called Kevin Gordon. And when they reached the house, like when they drove in and when they could see the house, they already saw things that were off. For example, Deborah's car was parked in a place where it usually wouldn't be parked. When they got closer to the car, they saw that the driver's seat was pushed all the way to the back, which was really weird. They saw that Debbie's two dogs, Mason and Morgan, had been running around, but they had been unfed, which is what Debbie wouldn't do. She wouldn't leave her dogs hungry like that. And outside Deborah's house, they could see beer cans that were lying on the floor, and the brand of the beer wasn't even the one that Deborah used to usually drink. And even if Deborah had consumed some other brand of beer, she wasn't the kind of person to just leave the beer cans on the floor. So, because Deborah was someone who was very neat and very organized, she just wouldn't do these things, which is why that was another red flag for them. When they entered the house, the first thing they saw was that Deborah's nursing uniform was thrown on the kitchen floor. Also, Kevin went to Debbie's bedroom and he found Deborah's purse like shoved underneath the bed. All these things that they saw were definitely red flags, because if you knew Debbie, she was a very organized person. She liked keeping her home neat and tidy. Jenny then went towards her answering machine to see if she could find any clue of where Deborah would be, and there was one message on the answering machine which was so weird. It was basically from a man who used to work from the hospital, and it said that, hi, I just called to see if you were okay because you haven't showed up to work for the past couple of days, so I just want to make sure everything's okay. She was literally seen at work the day before, but this message claims that she hadn't been to work for a couple of days, and this message had been recorded the day that Jenny arrived at the cabin, the day that they found out Debbie was missing. So Debbie had just been missing for 3-4 hours, but this guy claimed that she hadn't come to work for 3-4 days, which obviously wasn't true. So this message was obviously a message that was so fishy. So as soon as Jenny and Kevin saw all these things, they definitely thought that something was off, so they decided to call the police. Now, when they called the sheriff's department said that they can't really do anything till 72 hours are up, because that is when they'll actually be able to file a missing persons report. Because the police wasn't any help at this point, Jenny and Kevin just decided to look around her house, and there was a pond near her house, so they decided to just search around the pond and just search around the house to see if there was any sign of Debbie, but there wasn't. 5 days after the disappearance of Debbie, the police finally decided to launch an investigation, and the person who was in charge of the investigation was Captain Jack Watts. So he, along with his team, came down to Debbie's house, and they also got bloodhounds with them to go and search the property, and they could not find Debbie anywhere. Like I mentioned, there was also a pond near Debbie's house, but the pond, according to the sheriff's department, was kind of shallow and that there couldn't really be anything in there, so they didn't bother to look at the pond. But Jenny knew that even though the pond was small and shallow, there definitely was some deep ends to it. So obviously, after the police couldn't find anything, Jenny asked the police if she could get some of her divers in, someone she knew, to go and just search the pond, and the police was like, yeah, of course, why not. On Jan 1st, 1986, Jenny got 2 people to go and dive into the pond. One was Kevin Gordon, who was a family friend, and another man was Gordon Childress. Both of them had lots of experience, so they went in. 2 minutes of them being inside the pond, Gordon found a set of footprints and also drag marks. So once he followed it, he found a body, and the body was, according to him, in a burn barrel. As soon as they found the body, they obviously called the police, and the police came, and the body was taken out, and it was the body of Debbie Wolfe. After they found her body was when this case went downhill. There were so many things on her body or about her body that could have been red flags. The police just didn't acknowledge them. On 2nd January, Debbie's body's autopsy revealed that she had drowned. Now, according to Captain Jack Watts, he thought that since the dogs were running loose, Debbie must have been chasing the dogs, and then she would have fallen into the pond by mistake, and she would have drowned in that way. Or maybe one of her dogs must have fallen into the pond, and she must have gone to save the dog, and therefore she must have drowned in that way. There are so many things in this case and so many minor details in this case that raise so many questions, which is what we're going to get into right now, which say otherwise, that this definitely could have been a murder, but the police were just lazy and they just didn't want to take the efforts of investigating. I don't know what they were thinking, but they just ignored so many red flags. So we're gonna get into them one by one. Now, the first and the biggest of the red flags was the barrel. Like I said, one of the divers, Gordon, who found the body, saw that the body was in a burn barrel, okay? But the police refused to believe that there was a burn barrel. According to Captain Jack Watts, the burn barrel wasn't actually a burn barrel, because when Debbie was found, she was found wearing a jacket which was much larger than her. So it must have bloated in the water when they found her, which is why Gordon thought that it was a burn barrel, but in fact it was just a jacket, which I find really weird. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. The police refused to believe or even acknowledge there being a burn barrel, but the divers definitely thought that there was a burn barrel. In fact, there are reports that on the day that Debbie's body was found, Jenny, who was a mother, was walking into the cabin, and when she was walking into Debbie's house, she could overhear a couple of officers talking about her, oh yeah, we need to remove the barrel from the pond, obviously because there would have been some amount of evidence on it. So Jenny went into the house, and 10 minutes after, she came out and all the officers were leaving. So she was like, aren't you going to remove the barrel? And they were like, oh yeah, it's getting dark right now, we're just going to leave it, then we'll come back tomorrow. And when they came back the next day, the barrel was gone. So those are one of the reports that says that, you know, Debbie's mom had heard this conversation. But Captain Watts just totally disagreed about the fact that there was a barrel in the first place, and that it was just a jacket that had been bloated, like I said. Also, another thing that indicates that the barrel could have actually been there was that Jenny actually had a burn barrel which used to be placed outside Jenny's cabin. Her family used to use it for target practice because they used to use pistols. When Gordon came and told Jenny that, you know, I saw a body in a barrel, at that moment she went to the usual place that the barrel was kept, and it wasn't there, but you could see like there was like marks on the ground where you could see that, okay, there definitely was something here, and you could see the outline of the barrel Another red flag was that according to the autopsy, Debbie also had multiple abrasions on her fingers, which could have been defense wounds, but the police just refused to believe that and just completely ignored it. Another red flag is that usually when someone drowns, they have their mouth and their eyes open, and also their legs and their hands are in a clawed position in a way that they are, trying to get up to shore and trying to breathe. But when Debbie was found, she was found in a very relaxed position as if she was sleeping, which, questions the fact that was she already dead and then placed into the pond, because it didn't look like Debbie really struggled to go up and, get some air. Another thing that stands out was that when Debbie was found, there was no silt on her body. She was completely clean. Whereas when the divers had gone into search for Debbie, once they came out, they were like, they had silt everywhere, and like the divers like had a hard time washing it off for like the next 2 days. So it was really weird that if she was left in there for even like a day or two, she would have had some amount of silt on her, but she didn't. A few months after Debbie's death, Jenny received the clothes that Debbie was wearing when she had passed away, and she realized immediately that the clothes that she was wearing didn't belong to Debbie. The pants that she had on were too large for her. The shoes that she was wearing were men's shoes, and they were 2-3 sizes bigger than her size. The bra that she was wearing had a cup size which was 2-3 sizes bigger than her usual size. And the jacket that she was wearing was not hers, definitely. It did not belong to her, it belonged to some other man. She only had one oversized jacket, which was her brother's, which wasn't the one that she was found wearing. So these were the things that were completely off about the case, which there are so many questions regarding these things which are still unanswered. Even after there being so many red flags, the police department still refused to believe that this was a murder case and that there was something else going on, and they just stuck to the fact that she had just drowned and that was it. So there were 2 suspects which were looked into regarding a case before they just shut it completely. Both these suspects were from the hospital where she was working. So Debbie was also in charge of volunteers who came to work at the hospital. So these 2 suspects were volunteers. So one of the volunteers was someone who had a history of psychiatric illness and would often ask Debbie to go out with him. He somehow got hold of Debbie's house phone and would call her all the time and tell her and threaten her that, oh, I'm gonna come over and I know where you live. So he was looked into and he was questioned, but he had an alibi, and he was asked to take a polygraph test, but he refused to take one. And a couple of days after all this happened, he left the state. There was another suspect who was also a volunteer at the hospital. He was also someone who wanted to get romantically involved with Debbie, but she just told him that no, she just wants to be friends. And he was questioned, but there was no evidence that he could have done anything related to this case, and there was no way that he was involved in this case, so the police obviously let him go. But Jenny's mom believed that this was the guy who had left a message on Debbie's answering machine. So this is basically all the information that there is about this case, and it's just really sad, the fact that the police didn't even consider this a murder, because there were so many things about this case that just indicated that there was something fishy going on and it wasn't just a normal drowning. But for some reason the police didn't even bother looking into it. Jenny's mom believed that someone had come and taken Debbie hostage, and they had kept her hostage for a couple of days and then killed her and then put her into the burn barrel and into the pond. Jenny's mom also believed that they had come to Debbie's house the night that Debbie's body was found and taken the burn barrel and probably destroyed it, because obviously they didn't want any evidence to be found. So this was Jenny's mom's theory, and she, till the day she died, definitely believed that there was something fishy about her daughter's death, and it wasn't a drowning, and it was definitely a murder, but the police didn't do anything about it. And I just feel so bad that she died not knowing what actually happened to her daughter. So this is basically the end of today's video. If you guys have any more information, or if there's anything that I've missed out, please leave it in the comments below, because I would be happy to learn more about this case. And let me know if there's any case that you want me to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.